Welcome to the Abundant Accountant Podcast. This is where accounting professionals just like you learn all the ways to grow their firm, sharpen their skills, and have consistent increasing sales. I cover topics such as detaching from the emotional side of the sale, having paradigm shifts in the most important part of your business, which is the nucleus of your accounting firm, sales, and how to see an objection really as an asset and stop giving away your time for free for those that don't deserve it, so you can actually get paid your value and your worth and grow your top line revenue. You'll learn tips, sales strategies, as well as hear from personal interviews from successful accounting professionals. This podcast will show you exactly the blueprint on how to create the firm and life of your dreams full of abundance. Welcome to the Abundant Accountant Podcast. Today, we have a very special guest. Our special guest is an expert in designing workflows that help people work smarter and not harder. And after working as a software implementation project manager for over 10 years, she used her talent for workflow management and co-founded Workflows for Tax Pros. She lives in the mountains of Vermont with her husband and her 2 children. But before we welcome our special guest to the show, if you're an accounting, tax, or bookkeeping firm owner and you crumble at the thought of your next upcoming sales call, or you're constantly worried you're going to go blank or come across pushy, I have a system for you. As a firm owner, I understand that you have a paralyzing feeling of imposter syndrome. Like maybe you're new to your niche, or maybe you just don't know what to say and you're pretending to be an expert and you don't know what the next step is in your sales process. And the frustrations of your sales calls are just eating after you. And then you constantly are getting ghosted by clients after a call. Here at The Abundant Accountant, I show you a simple step-by-step sales process so you never wing it again. It will give you the blueprint and the formula for communicating your true value with confidence, even if accounting and tax seems boring to talk about to your prospects. When you book a call with me over at theabundantcall.com, I will show you exactly how to take back control of every sales conversations, close more clients, and end the second guessing over what pricing should be for every client. You will finally be able to stop trading hours for dollars and start growing your firm on your terms. So book your complimentary strategy call right now at theabundantcall.com and stop procrastinating your potential. Now let's welcome Jaime to the show. Welcome, Jaime, to the show.
Oh, thank you, Michelle. I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you so much for taking out the time to be here. And I'm super excited to talk about this because I think everyone here wants to work a lot smarter and not harder. And that's what we're going to talk about today. But before we dive in, I'd love it if you could share with everyone, what is it that you do and what is the business that you started to help firm owners that are in accounting and tax really make their lives a whole lot better, and how you got started.
Well, as the saying goes, all roads lead to Rome, right? So yep. I am actually an accountant by education. I got my undergrad in accounting from Oregon State University, go Beavers. And I did that because I knew I wanted to get a business degree. I always thought I wanted to have the corner office. I always loved the idea of being part of operations. And my father was the CFO of a local hospital. And so when I got into undergrad, I found that accounting was actually kind of interesting. So I kind of went that path and graduated with a degree. Well, as my senior year was, going through that, the path forward was I could stay a 5th year and work towards my CPA, or I could go out into the world and go into an accounting position. And I was kind of burnt out on school, I'll be honest. And so I opted into going into private accounting. And so I worked as a cost accountant for a small corporation and was on the team there were 5 of us in the accounting group, and really enjoyed the work. I enjoyed the puzzle of the work and the creation of an outcome, right? And so I did that for a few years, and then I realized this is not my thing. So I went off on my life. I ended up in healthcare IT, was doing implementation of software, and I had been with the company for 10 years, and we had grown. I was employee number 80-ish, and we had grown to about 500 people. And in that 10 years, a lot had changed. We had implemented dozens and dozens of softwares, and I felt the call for something different. And in 2014, I was introduced to the entrepreneurial world through multi-level marketing, which some people may know. But I started finding that there were other ways of working to make an income for my family and seeing that there was more possible in the world. Got into personal development, started growing myself kind of just in the way I was thinking. And one day I had an epiphany moment where I was listening to a podcast similar to this one, and a woman was talking about how she had started setting up softwares for online businesses. So working in the online space for coaches and consultants, and she was setting up software for them. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can totally do that. I've been setting up software for a decade now.
Hospital, yeah.
For the hospitals and the community health centers. And I had done 6 and 7 figure large projects. Like I had the skills to do this for a small business. And so I dove in and I started consulting for them. I started building a business in that. And randomly one day I was doing a market research situation, a post that was put into a female entrepreneurial Facebook group.
Okay.
And this one woman commented on it and said, sure, I'll get on a call with you. I was going to give her a Starbucks gift card to go buy a coffee as a thank you. And she and I got on the phone and we totally hit it off, just chatting about being moms who were building businesses. And she had set up the software that I was setting up for people. And we just connected and I went about my day. Well, a few months later, I had an opportunity where I wanted to have her share her skills with my community. And so we jumped on a call and we were there and nobody else showed up. It was a live presentation on a platform that was really big in 2020 and nobody was there. And there had always been at least somebody there. And so she and I just kind of connected again and just were chatting. And she's like, hey, I just got this new software and I'm totally loving it. And I've shared how I'm using it with some of my colleagues. They're totally loving it. And some of them are asking me to help them set it up. I have no idea how to do that, but you do software, right?
What software is it? I'm just curious.
It's TaxsDome. And so this was in 2020 when it was just kind of coming onto the market. And she basically figured it out, right? She broke the system to make it work for her. And so people were loving what she had created. And all these folks were asking her colleagues were like, hey, I want this too. And she was like, I have no idea how to do this. So she was like, are you interested in like talking more? And I was like, funny enough, I have an accounting degree. And sure, I'd love to learn more about it. And I was like, I have the software side too. And so it was a marrying of all of my background created this like kind of like this universal like explosion that was like, okay, this is your thing now. And so my partner, my co-founder, Jessica Smith, and she just started sharing what she was doing in her practice. And she and I partnered together to help several people do one-on-one work. And then we started hosting small group work. And then we created our program, which is now Workflows for Tax Pros. So we just had this iteration over the last 4 years. Wow. And started helping practice owners. And what I quickly found is one, this tool was really cool and there was so many things you could do with it. 2, tax professionals are tax professionals. They don't think in systems and workflows often. And so what we were able to do is take Jessica's practice mind and the way that she had set up her operations. And I was able to take my operations mind and the way I can teach how to set things up. And we married those together to make it really simple for people. And one thing about this industry is that it is in a massive transition, right? There are a lot of people that are operating in the old school way, I will call it, on paper and through very manual efforts and kind of the hire more people to do more manual effort. And in this day and age, with the way the industry is going, there's not as many people to do that work. And so the things that we're doing today are essential for the success of the long-term success of a practice.
And also like more profitable because hiring more people just increases your payroll to do stuff in an archaic way. And I would say, Jamie, it's the same thing on the sales side. Yes. The old school way of just having price conversations versus the new school way about having enrollment conversations and not having to sell go hand in hand with, upgrading your client experience with automations like this and not doing it yourself. Having
Yes.
people like Jamie and Jessica support you in that or whoever, whatever,
Right.
but don't try to figure it out on your own. So that's great. So you help firm owners implement like a tax dome or any software, correct?
So
Or
we are focused on TaxDome because the thing that also is true is that every software is different in what the features that it offers, the functionalities that it has, and the way in which you set it up. And so we have chosen to become experts in TaxDome. However, the things I want to talk about today about client experience and how eliminating administrative efforts and how cash flow can be improved, a lot of those things can be done on any tool. And so even if you're not using TaxDome, you will still take a lot away from this conversation because it's
yes,
a different way of thinking. So that is one of the things that, is really powerful about systems and automation is that it is the new, I like to call it like people stepping into their automation era.
hmm,
It is a new way of operating your small practice that can either be 100% virtual, meaning you have remote lifestyle if you want it, or it can be partially virtual, meaning that you still really like connecting with your clients in person. But what you're automating and creating workflows for is the way in which you deliver the services. And I think the powerful thing around that is that we get to standardize and make sure that it's being done effectively and efficiently for every single client. And what that does is, as we talked about, it reduces the need to hire because you're working smarter. And it also increases your profit because you're going to find that your payroll of your existing team is also going to be reduced because they're not spending their time pushing paper or having to remember to email people and following up on things all the time. We get to leverage the automations and the system to do that for us.
yep, yep, love it.
Yeah,
So even if you're not using TaxDome, I would grab a pen and paper and take some
that's
notes because
absolutely.
this is about moving into the automation era. And if you're not, what is the saying? I don't know how it goes, Jamie, but it's basically like if you're not growing and learning and making change, which is the scary part, then your
Yep,
your firm is dying, and other
literally.
people will speed up ahead way faster than you. But I
Yeah.
definitely want to talk about the first point because client experience on the sales side and then client experience with the automation on the deliverables on the client experience once they pay you. So on the sales side, it's when you don't have a sales process and you're paralyzed by not knowing what to say on a phone call, what to say to a
Yeah.
client, you freeze up, you let the prospects take control, you start negotiating your prices and all that when you don't have a system in place, that is a terrible client experience.
Yeah.
And people will pay premium fees and you'll attract higher quality clients with a great client experience on the front end. But
Yeah.
Jamie, you're here to talk about the client experience once that client's paid to now delivering the work. So I'd love
Yeah.
it if you could share what does that look like and what would a firm owner need to do today, even if they weren't going to use TaxDome, they were going to try to use some tools on their own
Hmm.
in order to upgrade their client experience, because otherwise they're not going to be part of the automation era.
Yeah.
They're going to be in the old school way of doing things, which is costing you time, money, headaches,
Yeah.
missing out with family because you're just
Yeah.
working, 60, 80 hours a week and then
Yeah.
dreading every single tax season every year. And then that
Yeah.
it's just like this vicious cycle. So how do you get out of this vicious cycle?
Yeah. So I think the first thing is to remember that when we're dealing with our clients, well, actually, I'll back up a step even. So when you're talking about the sales cycle and when you're bringing on a new client, I do this I've done this in my business. You promise them this amazing experience. You say, we're gonna be there to support you. We're gonna make sure that you have a great experience. We're gonna reduce your taxes to the highest possible point, legal point. And you are selling yourself to this client, right?
Yeah.
And I had a mentor one time say, you're promising a BMW, but you're delivering a Pinto. And I
Hmm.
don't know how many of you can like be like, oh yeah, that might be me and feel like I'm talking to you. I'm sorry to call you out like that, number one. But the thing that a lot of people forget is they put a lot of effort into the sales process. Rightly so. You have to tell people why you're so amazing. But once they move into the service delivery, a lot of people get into the weeds of the actual delivery and they forget about what the client is receiving. Now, for example, tax preparation. It is, a lot of practices, it's the least favorite service that they offer because they feel like their clients are asking them questions all the time and that the clients don't get them the documents that they need. They feel like they're not getting paid fairly. And all of that, I can tell you, probably comes back to your client experience. And here's why. Because when we don't have a high quality client experience and we haven't looked through the lens of what the client needs in order to deliver to us successfully, the documents we need, the information we need, the patience that we need, and also the meeting of our deadlines that we have, it's likely because the client doesn't know, right? The client, April 15th is the date in someone's head as a client because that's the date that they know taxes are due. They're not thinking about all of your workload that you have and all the other clients you have to serve because humans are just selfish and they're thinking only about their situation. They're not thinking about the other hundreds of clients you also have to prepare by April 15th. And so when we don't think about our client experience and leverage automation to allow us to make sure that we are doing what I like to call breadcrumbing them to success, meaning that we're breaking down each step of the process for the client and calling out multiple times for that client deadlines of cutoffs. So say March 15th is your cutoff date. If you know that in your head and you're like, why aren't my clients getting it done? I sent them this letter in the beginning of January that says that everything is due on March 15th. Why aren't they meeting that? It's because your clients maybe didn't read that message, didn't read that email, didn't read that letter that came in the mail. I can tell you from my personal experience, I used to receive this big old thick packet from my tax accountant and I would come in, I would see that it was from him. I wouldn't even open it and I'd throw it on the pile knowing that I had until April 15th. Then April 10th would roll around and I'd be like, hair on fire, got to get my stuff into him. And he would accept it and he would still get my taxes done. There was no repercussion to me as the client. Now, that was on him because he didn't have the boundaries. We'll talk about that another time. But
no, we can talk about that now because without the repercussions, it's like, and I've shared this here on a different episode. I don't know which one, but it's like if the police allow people with a DUI to just keep on driving, not take their license, not put them in jail, not make them go to all these classes, then people will continue to drink and drive. If you keep allowing your clients to turn things in very late without a penalty of late documents, or if you keep allowing people to get on extension, you don't charge for it. And now you're touching the file 2 times in order to give them their estimated payments. You continue to work for free. Exactly. And then that's when you get sick and tired of losing money and you're like, okay, this has to stop. And then you say to yourself, if I don't do this now, I'm going to just continue to spin my wheels and nothing will ever change. And these are important elements that what I'm hearing from you, Jaime, is once you put these workflows and systems into place and communications, then you'll actually have clients where tax prep, is maybe the thing you have to do, but it's now so smooth and easy.
Yes. Yes. We have clients all the time say, I'm actually like, after they set up the systems, I'm actually looking forward to tax season this year, because what they've done is they have built in a client experience from the very start of tax season all the way through the delivery of that finalized return and notification that it has been accepted. And what we can do is, because of automation and systems, we can actually send them little bite-sized information pieces along the way. One, we can remind them that our deadline is March 15th, right? That our cutoff is March 15th. And if you don't have us what we need, then we will have to put you on extension, or there will be an additional fee, whatever that looks like in your practice. But because we're able to send little bite-sized communications, and we're able to also send reminders to our clients around these communications, we're ensuring that they're actually seeing them. So there's no more of this big dump of information at the beginning of the tax season. Instead, it's just bite-sized breadcrumbing them to ultimate success. So that is a big piece. The other piece is that clients need to hear things what did they used to say? The old saying was people needed to hear things 7 times. I've heard the updated version, 2023, 2024, is they actually need to hear things like 20 times. And that's a lot of touch points for somebody to actually have lock into their brain. March 15th is the cutoff date, not April 15th. And so
Yep.
you don't have enough time in your day to send your every single client that you have 7 emails that says you must have your stuff to us by March 15th, right? You just don't have enough time. And so that is a big piece around that. And I think a lot of times people, when they're thinking about automation, people are thinking about the juicy stuff, which is creating efficiency for your team. But the efficiency for your team comes from your clients not emailing all the time asking, did you get my documents? Where's my return at? How, has everything been e-filed? When we're able to leverage these workflows, we can actually work status updates into the workflows that after all the documents are submitted via the organizer from the client, then it sends them and says, hey, we've gotten your documents. We're going to take a look at those. You can expect to hear from us in the short, in a few days. Until then, know that we have what we need. We'll be in touch with you. So it's a kind of a gentle, don't call us, we'll call you kind of message. And same thing goes for after you've completed the e-file. Hey, we have completed your e-file. Here are your next steps. And the cool thing about automation, Michelle, is that we can even make it a custom experience. So if somebody owes money at the end of after the e-filing has been completed, then we can send them detailed information about how to go and file those payments. And if somebody's getting a refund, we can send them a custom email that says, hey, you're getting a refund. Here's how you can go to where's my refund, I think is the email link or the website link, but how they can go and track the status of that refund without us having to do anything. It all happens automatically. And that is where you do the second thing we wanted to talk about, which is eliminating burden of administrative tasks, right?
Yeah, but before we jump into that, what I want to know is how did this help Jessica? So let's say a firm owner wants to make these changes. How did she see a difference from a revenue standpoint, profitability, just by changing the client experience, what I call in the onboarding process? Because a current firm owner probably has a very slow and expensive process. And you're not being compensated for all your wasted time, which we won't even get into today. But how did this help her in the firm?
Yeah, so Jessica's had massive success with this, but I'm going to actually talk about a couple of our clients because I think those are more exciting. So we had a firm that came to us last year and they were sending out paper organizers. They would spend multiple weeks every November preparing the organizers, printing them off from the prep software, getting them all organized, packing the packets, putting them in the mailbox, hauling them down, spending thousands of dollars on postage to send out these paper packets because they're 20, 30 pages in some cases from those organizers come out of the prep software. And with our system, what they found is it takes them about 15 minutes to start them on January 15th. And that includes sending out an automated communication that says, hey, tax season is starting. It also, once they have said, yes, I'm opting in to work with you again this year, it will then send them their engagement letter as well as their deposit, which we like to look at not just a standard deposit of like $100. No, we want to get some more skin in the game. So what we like to talk about is being able to send minimum fees. Having this happen, none of this is a surprise to the client because we have provided communication before tax season has started about, hey, this is how we're working this year. That email that gets sent at the beginning that says, hey, are you still interested in working with us, lays out exactly what it's going to look like for them to work with us this year. And we're reiterating in each of the steps, the touch points of that onboarding process is telling them, this is what it means to work with us this year. This is what the deadlines are. This is how you're going to pay us the deposit before we even get started. This is how you're going to deliver us the documents before we will ever start working on your return. Here's the process that's going to happen. And so we're removing the uncertainty for the client, and it makes them ask fewer questions. And our clients love to report back that they're getting paid in their sleep. Because they're starting all these clients with just a few clicks of a button, saving hundreds of hours of preparing packets and paper things.
Yeah. So what's the savings? What did you see with that client last year that did the paper and packing up all the things, going and using the postage versus the automation? What what time savings did you see in like that case study?
Yeah, so they were spending 3 weeks of staff time. So I would assume, I don't have the exact hours, but I would assume it's probably upwards of like 60 to 70 hours preparing those packets. And that didn't include the postage that they were spending on top of that. So if you take, 75 hours roughly of staff time at $20 an hour or more even, that's a lot of money, right? Just in staff hours.
Yeah.
And then you have the thousands of dollars they were spending on postage. Now it's all being done in 15 minutes that
Wow.
happens on January 15th, right? They don't have to be pre-doing all this. And what they were able to do in that time from November to January was communicate with their clients via email. And I can hear some people right now are saying, yes, but what about my paper only clients, the sweet little couple that I've been serving for the last 25 years?
The old ones.
your
Yeah.
your grandmas and grandpas. You can still absolutely still serve those people. But you know what? A lot of our clients have found that those people are actually adopting a heck of a lot better than their 55, 60-year-old clients because they're like, this is just how it's going to be done. This is so slick and easy. I can do this because everybody in this day and age is using a portal of some sort. So you can't let they won't know how to be an excuse for you to not do this because they're using it in their doctor's offices with electronic medical records. They're using it in their their electric bill. The Social Security requires it. And yes, certainly there are some out there that can't figure it out. But we have seen most people have adopted this with ease. And some people are like, my 80-year-old clients I thought would never figure this out. Love it. And they're celebrating it every day. So huge in the return on investment, because what this does is it takes those hours of preparing the packets or emailing the packets or moving the engagement letters onto your portal if you're doing it that way. And it allows you to just click a few buttons and have everything start. So literally the first 4 steps of our process are done completely automatically. And when the client has then submitted their organizer and their documents, and the organizers in the way that we use them are different. It's kind of like an interview. So it's an asynchronous interview that allows your clients to get you details about their tax year. So did they buy a house? Did they sell a house? Did they move? Did they have babies? All of those things that your standard organizer isn't going to really pull out of somebody because it's asking in a very technical manner. And this way we get to be more human with our people, even if we're using automation. So as soon as they finish that, then we're invited in as the firm employees to take action. But we're not having to do anything in those first few steps, short of having to do some follow-up as the cutoff dates get closer. But it's so much simpler to identify where your team or where your clients are at. Another thing that systems allow you to do is the automated reminders. When one email goes out, doesn't mean that your clients are seeing
it.
Or reading it, exactly. And so when we're using systems like this, where we have automated reminders, we can actually continue to ping them and hopefully catch them at a time when they will actually read it and be like, oh, this deadline is coming. I need to be aware of this. And that's the other value to firms is that you're not having to do that follow-up manually anymore. We get to lean into the automations to do that for us. And we can see it all. That. What I love is being able to see it too.
Yeah, well, you see it, but it's like instant time saving, instant money to your bottom line because you're not wasting 60 to 70 hours a week of staff time plus postage. Which I think leads us into the second main point about these workflows is that you eliminate your admin and effort in total. And I think the biggest it's so funny because when we have a call with a prospect, well, I always ask them, hey, what is the biggest challenge that you're having in your firm right now as it relates to your sales process? And sometimes the answer will be, getting good people, hiring good people. There's no one good. I can't grow my sales if I don't have more people. And it's like, well, you really don't need any more people. Nope. So let's dive into, how this eliminates your admin efforts.
Yeah. So I love to say that TaxDome is your next best hire. That's TaxDome, right? And I'm speaking to TaxDome because I know the power of it and I know the impact that it can have on practices. But as we talked about, the elimination of having to do follow-ups with your clients is huge. The other administrative efforts that having a tool like TaxDome or a centralized practice management tool provide you is that everything's in one place. There's a lot of energy that goes into they call them tech stack. So tech stack is the cumulative list of all the softwares that you're using. So in a very streamlined tech stack for a practice that's using systems and automation, it could be your tax prep software, whatever one you want to use, your practice management software, as we've talked about, we love TaxDome. It could be you'll need like a scheduling platform, so something like Calendly or Acuity, and then you may have an email service provider, so where your emails are housed out of, and that's a very streamlined tech stack. What some of the kind of Frankenstein tech stacks have that are really complicated is they'll have 5 or 10 softwares they're using just to accomplish some of the very basic things, like getting your invoicing out and payments received, emailing client portals so you have document management for your clients, communicating with your clients in ways of doing that, getting electronic signatures. There's so many things that are in these new there are so many things that are in these new all-in-one practice management tools that allows you to have just one tool that you have to know how to use. And that right there reduces a ton of administrative effort, because when you have, even if it's just you, but if you have, say, 1 or 2 or 3 team members, or even a team of 20, when everybody is working out of one place, it allows them to be more efficient in their work. When they're having to go and hunt down details or documents on a specific client, if everybody knows that they're in this practice management tool and they're in this specific folder, because we have a system around how we're saving this information, say your work papers, and it gets saved and done for every client the same way, you dramatically reduce the amount of minutes and hours ultimately that a team member is spending hunting down information. The old school way, as we talked about earlier in this podcast, where people had folders, people literally had to get up and go and hunt down a folder, or it maybe even literally fell in a crack, right? Wow. So when we don't have to do that anymore, it quickly replaces that time and puts them back into actually spending their time on service delivery. And so what that brings is that you find that you're able to skill up your team more, because they have less admin work to be doing and they have more time to be learning about new opportunities for tax liabilities. They have opportunity for skill increasement, improvements. And so they're able to bring admins into client service manager roles where they can actually interact with your clients and feel skilled and confident in doing that. And it's amazing when you can get rid of this admin effort that you're doing in a very manual based operation, you quickly find efficiencies in the day-to-day work. I think industry average is 5 to 10 hours per person is eliminated when you implement automated operations. Now that is like all softwares combined. So you're going to have some that are going to be higher than that even. We've had some people report 15 to 20 hours of improved, reduction in administrative efforts.
Is that on a weekly, monthly basis?
That's on a weekly basis. Yeah. So 5 to 10 hours per person a week is a lot. You're looking at
huge.
Almost the whole working week.
So in the client example that you gave us earlier, what did they end up saving per person on a weekly basis by implementing the automation and work?
I think they were up in the 10 to 12 hours, if I recall correctly. So by again having everything in one place, they were replacing a very manual process. So they were still learning. So that was in year 1. And in year 2, they'll probably see even higher return on investment in the number of hours reduced. So it just continues to get more efficient as time goes on. And the cool thing about that is, Michelle, is that people can decide, do I want to have my team working less so we get down to normal 40-hour work weeks year round? Yeah. Or do we want to go through a period of growth and scaling where we do work a little bit harder and we increase our client capacity and we take on new clients? The other powerful thing of that is oftentimes when you do that, you're bringing on higher paying clients because and you have the opportunity to then replace your lower clients in a kind of a longer game reduction of client capacity to get your hours back down. But there's so many things you can play with when you have the systems in place to create the practice in the firm that you want and hit those long-term visions.
Yeah. And I think, like a lot of people want to get their work weeks to 40 hours and just have your staff just work like normal so they can
Yeah.
enjoy more time with their family and their time doesn't have to be sacrificed by all this nuance type work. But I think the biggest thing too is you can reward your team
Mhm.
and avoid costly turnover by having them do work that they should not even be doing. Like you said, you could be, when you implement anything of this, you're not only saving time, but you're putting the focus on service delivery. And that's what your staff probably wants to do. They want to do the accounting, they want to do the tax work, they don't want to be paper pushers. And when you can, we didn't even get into that today, but I can imagine that by implementing the workflows and systems and the automation, it's also reducing turnover and people
Yeah.
being resentful of their work and, saying, I don't know why I'm hired to do this. I should be doing X, Y, and Z.
It's something that practice and firm owners have to be thinking about because the younger generations
Don't want
don't
to do this stuff.
they don't know anything but their mobile devices, right? I was having a conversation with a group just recently at a conference, and they were saying their firm owner wants to retire. He's been saying he's going to retire for 10 years. And these two younger people who were in their 30s, early 30s, they had been working for a long time to, help get the business built. And he refuses to allow automation because he's still the owner. And they were having the thoughts and sharing with me that they don't know how long they can sustain it because they have this kind of this segmentation that's happening in the firm's workforce where they have the old school people who have always known paper and so they're happy to continue as is and they're actually a little scared of the change. And then you have these younger people who are saying, I can't continue this way for much longer. I need you to build me the efficient systems in order to be able to continue doing my work and to stay on as a valued employee. And so
Right.
that's huge. We're going to be facing more of that in these coming years as firm owners are wanting to bring in younger people to replace them and have somebody to sell to. And they need to be thinking about that now because it's not something you can turn on a dime and have happen because again, you've got change management of the older crowd and also, training the younger crowd on how the systems are going to work. But it's important. It's an important thing to be thinking about because people coming out of college won't go to work for a paper firm. At least they'll come on for a couple of weeks and then they're going to leave, and all of that effort you've put into them is for naught.
Yeah. And that's the high cost of turnover. It's a lot less of an investment to really change your systems and
Hmm.
client experience with this
Hmm.
automation of whatever you choose
Hmm.
than losing an employee and starting from scratch. It
Yes.
this is the cost of that is so much greater than the investment of, working with someone like you or trying to implement something yourself. And I think that leads us to our third main point too, which is, Jamie, how have you seen this improve cash flow with these
Yeah.
automations and systems?
Yeah. So cash flow has been a big thing. And a lot of people, because they don't have systems, they don't have the tools that allow them to be efficient in the gathering of monies for the services you have delivered. They have just come to terms with the fact that they're going to essentially work for free, depending on their model. They could be working for free until the return is completed, and then the client may or may not pay that invoice at the time of completion. And so there's a lot of risk in that as a small business. And as small business owners, we know cash is the lifeblood of your business. And so what we can do with these automations is we can actually remove ourselves emotionally from the process, which is really cool. So what we can do is one, we can automate the sending of invoices. As I mentioned earlier, we like to look at them as minimum fees. So what is the lowest fee that I'm going to charge somebody? That's what my deposit would be. So if all
Yep.
my individuals are going to always pay $350, I don't have to say everybody's going to pay up front because some people don't want to do that. But a minimum fee is a low barrier way of having people be invested into your services. They pay $350, everybody's going to pay that. And then on the back end, if they have a more complex return, then we can, charge on the back end. So one, we can automate that deposit. So everybody pays it and we know everybody's paying it.
I mean,
The back,
this is huge when you
yeah.
talk about like the sales process because I my belief and everything that I teach is that you're going to get paid up front from every client because the
Yeah.
amount of outstanding AR, accounts receivable, that firm
Mhm.
owners I come across is ridiculous. And
Yes.
you're not getting paid for being a bank
Nope.
and lending this money to your clients. And you're not even able to invest that money. So you're
Right.
losing on that part.
Yep.
But I mean, I've had some firm owners with a few 100,000 of AR to millions and getting this minimum deposit. I love that you said that is great because you can always send the supplemental invoice and
Yep.
you're not going to lift a finger and do any work until you're paid 100%.
Yep.
But the
Exactly.
amount of AR that I see firm owners have is ridiculous.
Yes.
And and not, like I said, chasing people down for payment. Talk about staff time. That I've had some people say and what about even the amount of money that you're not even billing your clients right now? Because you
Oh
say,
yeah.
"Oh, I'll just do it later. I'm going
Yeah.
to do it later when I have time." And you never have time. This is a
No.
vicious cycle that until you change and make a change like this, and I am all about this, Jamie, you're you're going to continue to feel burnt out all the time
Yes.
and lose the motivation for your firm instead of, living your dream to,
Hmm.
maybe have a remote firm and pass this on to the team that you have working there and actually have a hefty, nice retirement instead of having nothing in the bank. And
Yeah.
this is a massive piece because getting these invoices out for the 1040 work, I don't believe in it for the other stuff because you have to actually have an enrollment conversation, which we've
Oh,
talked
sure.
about in other episodes here, saying what is the minimum I'm going to charge and how am I going to get this paid. It
Hmm.
is massive. And this
Yeah.
this is huge.
And I will say a lot of people, so we talked about this before we started this podcast today, but a lot of people have feelings and thoughts about deposits, right? The beauty of setting up automations is you make the decision and you go, right? You're not having to actually send that deposit. We draft everything to inform our clients through that client experience. And when that deposit comes, they're not surprised by it. You may have some people ask some questions about it, but when you just approach it in a completely neutral state of this is how we do business now, and you're not having to actually physically send that invoice, it removes a lot of the people pleasing that comes out of this industry. It removes that out of it. And you just say, nope, this is our process. This is what we decided we're doing. And you send it out. And so it removes that emotional toil that comes from sending money and requests for invoices. To your point, I'm too busy right now. I think that's just a symptom of something larger, which is I'm afraid to
Oh,
ask to get paid for my services.
it is.
Yeah.
It's totally that. And
Yeah.
it's because we don't have control over our business.
Yeah.
And you've lost control and you're terrified that if you ask for your money, you're going to lose clients. People are going to leave you. And when
Yeah.
you actually just implement these changes for good, then you can capitalize on your profitability, your cash flow, and enjoy maybe tax season. I mean, the clients
Yeah.
I work with, Jamie, I tell them to book vacations during tax season. And at the
Yes.
beginning, they think that's a crazy idea, but that's what they do. And the
Yeah.
ones that are looking to retire soon, they actually can retire because they can start stashing cash instead
Yeah.
of having accounts receivable and never getting paid and saying, you know what, Michelle, I'm just going to have to write that off as bad debt. I'm like, well, not if you work with me, you're not.
Right.
That's going to be money in your bank. That's going to be traveling the world money. Yeah.
Yes. I have another tool that can actually help with that avoidance of AR completely, which is really cool. So within TaxDome, and I don't know that TaxDome is the only one that I know that does this, but you can actually lock documents with an invoice. So when you send your
A
8879 for
100% you
signatures,
better lock documents
heck yeah.
until you are 100% paid. There's no
Yep.
tax return being filed. They have
Yep.
access to nothing. And
Yep.
on any monthly services, I don't know if you can implement this, but you can just let me know real quick and then I'll send all my clients to you. On the on any monthly accounting, monthly bookkeeping,
Yeah.
any monthly subscription, if a payment does not go through, an automation of a beautifully written letter approved by me goes
Mhm.
out that says,
Mhm.
unfortunately, we're going to have to stop services
Yeah.
until you contact us or you update your credit card or ACH or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think I'm trying to think through my head really quickly how we could do that. I have some ideas, but it is not something that we have done as a like a set process. But
Oh,
I think there's some things you could do. There's definitely ways that you can tag things so that it won't go through.
yeah.
So I have a couple of ideas for sure.
Yeah.
So but the power of that locked invoice is huge because so many people they get the 8879 sign and they have the client invoice go out at the same time, and then the client ignores the invoice payment link,
Yep.
and
Yep.
they sign the 8879, so it starts the 3-day timer, and then they're feeling pressure to follow along with the compliance they have there, and yet they still need to get paid, and then the client just is ignoring, and so they just file eventually, right? And it's like, yes, you can do that, but why? You don't have to. And if it's only a few clients, as a lot of people like to say, that aren't paying, that's still your energy going into the time when you want to be relaxing or focusing on other things like going to conferences or spending time with your family, which are much higher value prospects than you chasing down invoices in after tax
100%.
season. So,
And the biggest thing I hear from firm owners, and I'm sure many of you can relate, is I get, Michelle, how can I stop working for free? How do I handle these scenarios in a different way where I can communicate my value and what I
yeah,
do? And I was like, well, what Jamie's talking about is step number one.
yeah,
You're not going to ever do any work without being paid. That's
yeah.
not how, that's the old school method. If that's what you want to do, then continue to
Mhm.
use paper organizers and all the other stuff. But if you're looking into moving into the automation era, this is just the way of doing business. You
Yeah,
can't leave a grocery store with your groceries and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to eat this, but I'm going to get paid later on. So I'm going to come back and pay the grocery store a week later. No,
yeah,
you can't
yeah,
leave without it. So why are we letting our clients leave our firm or get something that you've completed work on without paying for that service? That it just
yeah,
doesn't make any sense.
yeah,
And to be honest, if you're doing any free work, that's a non-revenue generating activity.
yeah,
And that's
yeah,
where you create a lot of inefficiencies,
yeah,
not only in your sales workflow, but in your execution workflow, like what we're
yeah,
talking about today.
yeah,
So thank you, Jamie,
absolutely.
so much. Is there anything else on the cash flow that you want to share that maybe we just didn't cover yet that you're like, I gotta say this, or
No,
we
I think the one thing I would share is that the people that came to us very uncertain about implementing things like deposits or the minimum fee deposit that we talked about, or even the locked invoices, they all trusted that they saw others doing this and they said, I'm going to give it a try. And you know what? I've only had we've helped over 800 clients at this point, but I've only had one come back and say, I actually don't think deposits are the thing for us. And because everyone else massively recognized the value that that brought to them. That meant that they could make payroll for their team members early in the tax
yeah.
season. That meant that, to your point, they could go on vacation and not be stressing about getting paid. They also didn't feel that they had to continue taking on more new clients because they needed to have a quick burst of cash to bring people in. And that release of pressure is so massive when you're in a high stress period like tax season in your practice. And I will add to, like, all the things that we've talked about it from the lens of tax preparation, but if you are moving into advisory work,
Oh,
these things are even more critical. Like, you can't be selling
totally.
high ticket advisory work and not have these three core pieces in place, because you will quickly have people walking away from you because you aren't providing a good client experience, and that you're drowning in the admin tasks that it takes to run the advisory work, and making sure that those year-round relationships are being maintained and supported, and that you're providing the services that you have promised through your scope of work in your letter of engagement. And so all of those things are amplified when you look at the advisory side of things.
Oh, 1000%. And if you don't fix this on the compliance side or on the lowest service that you offer,
Mhm.
you're
Mm-hmm.
never going to be able to pay off your debts fast. You're never going to be able to fully fund a retirement fund for yourself. You're never going to be able to increase your staff's pay and do all of those things that you want to do in your firm. So, Jamie,
Yeah.
thank you so much for
Yes.
sharing all of this with us today. I I know you've got a place where a bunch of accounting and tax firm owners hang out and talk about
Yeah.
all of this. So, can you share that
You
with
bet.
the
Yeah.
listeners that want to, say, okay, I'm done with the old way. I'm moving into automation era. I have no idea. I'm terrified of doing this. Let me go hang out with others.
Yes. Well, I love that. And we would love to welcome you. So we have a free Facebook group where we have over 6,500 tax professionals, accountants, and bookkeepers hanging out with us. We're talking about automation and workflows specifically. So we're over on Facebook. You can look for tax pros, accountants, and bookkeepers, automation and workflows. If you put in tax pros, automation, and workflows, it'll pop up for you. But that is where we're hanging out. We do weekly live trainings. We're talking about, new functionalities that are coming out that can really transform your practice. We talk about TaxStone because that's what we know and love. But if
Yeah.
you are on other platforms, come and hang out with us because we also talk about client experience and other things that are really valuable for someone on another platform as well. And if
Love
you
it.
want to learn more about me and my partner, Jessica Smith, who's an enrolled agent, or the work that we're doing, you can check us out on our work. You can check us out on our website at workflowsfortaxpros.com. You can find everything about our program and the services we offer there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today on The
Yes.
Abundant Accountant. And if you're an accounting, tax, or bookkeeping firm owner and you want to work a lot smarter instead of harder, not only is the execution of the workflow to your clients and everything we spoke about today important, but also your sales process and workflow
Mhm.
is just as important in order to let go of overly demanding clients, get paid based on your value and worth. And so, what we have for you here at the Abundant Accountant is a system and showing you how to do that where you only work with ideal clients. You only work with people who will pay you a deposit based on the minimum fee, like Jamie was talking about. So you can catapult your firm to the next level and only work the hours you want to work. Maybe you want to work 20 to 40 hours a week and pay your staff bonuses and fill up your retirement account. That's really what's possible for you. And we'll show you how to do all of that in a way that feels simple, effortless, and automatic. So if you want me to show you how, go to theabundantcall.com and you can book a call with me and my team. And we look forward to seeing you all in the next episode. Have a beautiful day.